Hello guys, hello, welcome. Okay, we are live. Can you hear us? I hope so. So grab a coffee, have a seat, hi in the chat. We are here for the second episode of our webinar series, Toucan You Can. I'm here with Jeremy today. I'm Gabriel. I will act as a host today because I'm not the product specialist, and Jeremy is here to give you all his knowledge about the product, about Toucan, and about all his experience about the data viz and all the project he works on during the past years. We'll wait 1 or 2 minutes, maybe, just to have everyone on board. Maybe you can present yourself.
I'm working since 5 years within Toucan, and mainly supporting our customers to define the proper way of doing Toucan. So through trainings, through technical support. I've seen many projects. So I'm glad I can share some insights for you guys.
Okay, that's the point of today. Just to remind you, we are here for 30 minutes. You will discover our method to build, I would say, awesome charts and the whole methodology to go from business needs to data visualization that actually drive engagement and actions. I think you're sharing the wrong screen. I can't see your presentation.
Full screen.
Yes, please.
Share, disable, share, screen, full screen.
Okay.
Tu me dis là.
Okay. Perfect. I think everyone is here, and I think let's go. We can dive in.
Let's go. Quiz time to start.
Quiz time.
Which of the 5 human senses do you think is the fastest
to get information to your brain?
Yeah, to process information. I don't know if I should wait for some hands to be raised, but maybe Gab, do you have an idea?
Hearing, I would say.
No.
Wrong. Wrong.
It's vision, of course. And yeah, it's the fastest, and it's not faster, it's way faster than the others. Okay. Here is some work from Northrenders, which is one of the big dad of the data visualization discipline. And in order to understand the different bandwidths of each of our senses, he compared them to the computing powers. And as you can see, the vision is far more powerful than the other, because in terms of computing power, it could be the equivalent of a network of computers, where the smell and hearing are in the second place. They are both equivalent to a hard drive. The taste is the worst one. It's like a simple pocket calculator. And the touch, finally, is not that great and is equivalent to a USB stick. So as you can see, the vision is by far the most powerful sense we have in terms of processing information. And what is interesting here is that among all this global bandwidth we receive from our eyes, everything is done unconsciously, because we are only conscious of only 0.7% of our global visual bandwidth. And we have 2 languages that are in front of each other. We have the language of the eye, which is sensitive to colors, to shapes and patterns. And we have on the other side, the language of the mind, which speak into words, numbers, or concepts. And so you have a big processing here, a translation between these two languages, which is mainly unconscious. And so that what you see brings a more precise information, but your brain is just doing this unconsciously. When we have said this, a lot of scientists did some researches over the time about this unconscious translation between what we see and what we think. Here is just an illustration of different visual cues that are ranked from the less precise for the brain to the more precise. So the more precise is obviously the position. So here, for instance, it's clear that my circle is above my bar. The comparing some lengths of bars is also easy for the brain because you can easily see the gap between two bars. It's more difficult when we compare areas, especially circular one. Here, it's more difficult for my brain to say, okay, the yellow circle is 2, 3, 4 times bigger than the blue one. I don't really know. Our brain is also not so comfortable with volume. It's really hard to evaluate precisely volumes. And the worst one is the shade of colors. Of course, I can see that this yellow is lighter and this one is darker, but how far is darker? I don't have a precise idea. So here is just an illustration of everything the scientist brings to the data visualization discipline. And when we use some charts, the same principle apply to make the translation between what we see and the information, the precision of the information. It's all in it. When we have said this, it brings the importance of the design. Everything matters in terms of design. Of course, the overall experience, so how you navigate between your charts, it will help you or not help you in this translation. The clarity of the chart, it matters. The use of colors, etc., etc. And the goal here, and the secret, the kind of secret, is to keep it simple, because we don't want to overload this flow, this process here. We are already overloaded during our daily life with visual elements through websites, through television, etc. And the key components is to keep things simple to avoid the overloading of information. Okay? So now we have said that the design is a key component of any analytics application or dashboard. We need a method. And for that, as you said, Gab, we have made like hundreds and hundreds of data visualization projects, and we just refine our method over the time. And I will just present it to you. First step, know your audience. Of course, it sounds trivial, it sounds common sense, but it's really important and often neglected. First thing is be careful by wanting to address several populations with the same application or dashboard. It's generally a big mistake because you will have several needs. Your application storytelling will not be so clear because you want to address several needs actually. One population is defined by a group of individuals that have the same task, the same objectives, and share a common goal. So this is the first thing. We've seen too many dashboard applications that are not so used because of this, because they want to address too many populations at the same time. You really need to know who they are. So you need to ask yourself the basic questions about their life, the purpose of your users, what is their role within their organization, their main tasks, their main goals, etc. Ask them directly. And we have seen too many projects where we've seen the project team neglected the end user, and at the end the result is generally not that great. Step 2, you have to define your goals. What you want to do with what you want to achieve with your application. First, you need to choose a type. So in the analytics world, generally we have 3 main typology in terms of dashboarding. You have the operational one, which are used mainly on a daily basis to do your daily task. We have the analytical ones, where you can just analyze the past performance in order to make decisions about the future. And you have the strategic one, which are more here to communicate and align at a company level different departments. And it's the same principle. When you want to mix different objectives within the same dashboard, generally it's a mistake. So just you have to be clear when you start a dashboard. Okay, this one is more on the operational side, for instance. Second things you need to define is your story. It's the big question. In data visualization, we usually answer questions, and here is your big question. You need to define it in order to be able at the end to say this is in the scope, this is out of scope, because it doesn't answer my major question. It's really important, and it avoids you to mix answering several big questions, which can be misleading for the user, of course. Third step, set your task map. So what is this tool? We use it since 3 or 4 years now, and it works very well. And it's basically a mapping of questions your user already have, and you replicate the mental process of decision making. So first you need to know something. So I want to know if my sales results are good. This is something I want to know. Then you need to answer this question. You need to evaluate some stuff. So if I need to know if my sales are in a good shape, I need to evaluate if there is some growth, if there is some upward trends, etc. over time. I need to evaluate some stuff compared to a benchmark, etc. And then the last step of the task map is to ask yourself what your end user will do when he will have the answer to his question. If the sales are bad, what do they do? If it's good, what do they do? So this is these 3 main components of a task map.
Yeah, and often the doing is
really important. Yeah,
it's not really put in place or in the question in first. So you really have to take in account this doing things. It can avoid building data visualization for, I don't know, but ad hoc question or not generic question. So yeah, the doing is really a key part.
Yeah, exactly. I will show you an example to illustrate this. So how to use it? So it's a 5-step methodology. You make a list of the different populations you want to address. You make a list of the different use cases. Use cases is basically the task they need to do at the end. You then can design your task map for the main use cases. You don't have to do all the use cases because sometimes it's really simple, but for the main one, just take the time to design a task map. Third step, you choose charts based on the task map. You build the storytelling of your use case. You test it as a user. Is it clear? The path, the journey, is it clear? Is it misleading sometimes? And at the end, you revise everything with the task map in order to check if you forgot something. It looks like this, basically. So for a population and on a specific use case, you have your 3 columns, knowing, evaluating, and doing. And yeah, you just fill it. So the knowing part is basically the questions the user asks themselves. Evaluating is the indicators, the dimensions they need to see. Do they need to see over time compared to a benchmark, etc. And the doing, it can be mailing someone. It can be just by looking at another chart to go deeper into the analysis, or it can be nothing. Here is an interesting example based on real life. So from our cars, you know that it has evolved a lot within our car, but the fuel level is something sensitive. And if we do the timeline of how things are evolving, we can do the parallel with the work of a task map, for instance. So yesterday there was no design, and we had in each of our cars an approximative fuel gauge that just tell us the level of fuel within the car. So it was a basic information with no design around the user. But if we ask ourselves what the driver needs to know, they need to know if they can reach their destination without having to be out of gas, out of fuel. So that's why now in the cars you have only the remaining kilometers. You see the shift. It's more an information that I need to know in order to be comfortable with driving my cars. And if we project ourselves tomorrow, and if we ask ourselves what is the thing that the driver is doing actually, they need to refuel their car periodically. And tomorrow we will see some guidance that just brings you to the most relevant gas station based on both the remaining kilometers plus maybe some price benchmarking between the stations that are on your road. And tomorrow you will have applications that will tell you, okay, in 2 kilometers, just go out of this highway and refuel your car in these total stations, for instance. And you see the importance of knowing what is the action. We switch completely the design if we ask ourselves what is the action taken by the end user. And it's the same principle in data visualization. If you ask yourself what is the end user doing with this information, you can completely switch and choose another chart, for instance. Fourth step.
We have the time.
Okay.
Do you have any question, guys, in the chat? No, nobody. Everything seems clear.
Okay, good. Fourth step, you have to build your storytelling. Here, it's a key component and it's a real belief within Toucan. We build the product in this way. One question, one chart, basically. We want to avoid this overload of information we've seen previously. And so you can't answer multiple questions with one chart. That's why generally a table chart is not the chart you will choose if you want to give precise information to your user. So one question, one chart. How to structure your application, your dashboard, your storytelling, basically. We like to start with trends. So we have charts that are presenting trends over time, and so that the end user could identify patterns, breaks within the time. Then we have some charts that are here more to explain stuff, to identify top and bottom performers, to compare different categories, different indicators between them. So this is the second part of the storytelling. And then it's optional, but we like to keep it generally. You can keep some charts with some details, some tables. You can keep some tables at the end, because if your user haven't found the answer to his question by looking at the trends and explanation, you still let him find it within the details. So it's like route de secours.
As we say in French.
Yes. Okay, and 5 step, the most interesting one is to choose the right charts. So I will present you within a Toucan application. You see my screen?
Yes, I do. You can go in full screen.
Full screen.
Yes.
Like this.
Perfect.
So I will go into to say a few words into each of the main charts. I won't. I haven't listed all of them, but I listed the main one, and I will say a few words, few insights to help you next time you will have to choose between one chart or another. So I will start with the first one, which are the ones that are showing trends over time. So if you remember, this is the first chart we want to set up within our storytelling, so to show some trends. The main one is the bar chart. Here, the bar chart is mainly used to compare month over month performance, year over year, week over year, and is useful when you want to compare months between them. Okay, so you have a lot of information when you see a bar chart. You can have insights about a trend. So here, clearly, we have an upward trend during the year. You can see some irregular fluctuation. Here a drop in April, a drop in September. You can also see visually, it's easy to see the gap between the months. So here the May month is about half the June results. So I can clearly see visually. And you can also identify some seasonal patterns. So here, for instance, a huge increase during the summer and at the end of the year. So you see, bar chart, it looks simple, but you can bring a lot of information on your data. The second one is the line chart. So we often have the question, should I use a bar chart or a line chart to show data over the time? We like to use the line chart when the data is accumulated within the time. For two main reasons. The first one is we can, for instance, if I take the blue line here, with the angle of the curve, I can identify some acceleration phase, deceleration phase, acceleration, deceleration, because of how my curve has its angle. And the second thing that you can identify with a line chart is how a gap between two lines is evolving. So here, for instance, I have a yellow line, which are my actual revenue, and in blue, the dashed one is my target. Here, there is zero chance that I can reach my target at the end of the year, because it's clear that the gap between my two lines is just widening, and I couldn't expect 10 million here in November and 13 million in December. It's just zero chance it will happen, because you see the gap is just widening. So that's why the line chart is our main choice when you have cumulative data. And when you want to compare month by month against each other, just choose the bar chart. Bar line chart, it's a mix of both, but he has a very specific mission and is often misused in real life, because the goal of the bar line chart is to compare two variables that have a different scale, but, and it's important, have a relationship between them. So here, for instance, if we compare the number of website visits on the website, we know and we suspect that there is a correlation with the conversion rate. And as you can see, when the visits increase, we have a drop in conversion rate, which is logical because we have more leads, but with a quality that is, with less quality. Sometimes this relationship is direct, and sometimes between indicators you can have a delay. For instance, if I add here with the bar, let's say I have the number of new customers, and I want to compare it with the number of tickets from my customer service teams, there will be a delay, because you will have an increase in the number of new customers within a month, but you expect more on the following 1, 2, or 3 months, the increase of your other indicator, which are the number of tickets. And it's really important to use the bar line chart like this. Sometimes it's just that we want to answer 2 questions within the same chart, but it's better to do a bar chart and a line chart than a bar line chart, which is a mix of several questions. And the last one is the stack bar chart. It's the same principle as the bar chart. You can see trends, etc. Easily, with this particularity to have the composition of your total between 2 or more categories. Here, be careful again. We advise to keep at maximum 3, maybe 4 categories, but avoid we've seen so many times the rainbow bars where you are just overloading the eyes of your users. And what brings this visualization is to see the shift in distribution and especially dominance. So here for over the year, we can see a shift between the sales in store, which are dominant early during the year, but at the end of the year, the online sales just take the dominance. But yeah, be careful, 1 or 2 categories. If you have 10, 20 categories, the tips is to put all your minor categories into another big categories to keep your boards with 2 or 3 categories.
Yeah.
Now, the chart that allows you to explain stuff. So it's not time related this time. The most used, this is the most used chart within Toucan, by far, the leaderboard. Again, the eyes love the bars because it's easy to compare distribution, to compare gaps. Here I see that smartwatch is about half the result. It's basically half the result of the tablet. I can see that my top 3 is way far behind the other. I can see some duo here. Yeah, it's visually and also it's not by randomness that we choose to rank from top to bottom. It's just that our brain are used to when we see a sport ranking, for instance, or election ranking, everything is from top to bottom. The first one are on the top. So our brain is already educated to that. So we see the ranking, the distribution, everything. So very insightful chart. It has his little brother, the leaderboard centered average. This one, the goal is to clearly split your population between 2 groups, basically the good ones and the bad ones. So you to split it, you can use an average target. Here in this example, it's for a customer service team. They have a resolution time target to 5 days, and I can clearly see which agents are on target and which that are not. And with the bar, we like the bars. I can see clearly how far they are good or how far they are bad.
No finger pointing. Huh?
Yeah, be careful with this. It's in some company culture, it can be like, yeah, as you say, finger pointed to show some department, etc. in red, but in some culture,
choose your color wisely.
yeah, exactly.
Green and red.
Yeah. Next one is the versus chart. So this one is to compare 2 entities across multiple indicators. Okay, so you can compare an entity to another one. You can compare an entity to an average, a benchmark. Yeah, you can compare, but you need to compare something comparable. It doesn't bring values if you just use it if there is no need to compare it. And what brings this chart is to mainly find imbalances between the overall trends. So here I can see that I have a fairly balanced performance between my 2 regions, except on 2 points. So here on the conversion rate, where the Eastern region outperformed the West region. So there is something here to dig into. And as well here on the win rate, I have a big gap between my 2 regions. So you can identify this pretty clearly. The radar chart has the same objective, is to compare 2 or more entities. You can compare more entities, but again, keep it simple. put your categories into a big other categories to keep 2 or 3 or maybe 4 categories. The goal of the chart is to identify strengths and weaknesses. And to do a good radar chart, you generally need to set up the same scale for each of our dimensions. And so generally, you need to build a kind of a scoring system. So here we have just scored different dimensions on a score out of 100. And so here it's comparable and we have a proper radar chart. And here I can see if I compare my smartphone X to a benchmark, I can see visually that I am slightly overperforming the benchmark on each dimensions, except here on the after sales service, where I'm far behind the benchmark. Next one, my favorite, bubble chart. So this one is again to see relationship between 2 variables. Generally, we put an absolute value. So here is just my revenue in millions of euros on the vertical side. And on the horizontal side, we generally choose an absolute value. So it can be a growth, it can be a variation within the months, it can be everything, but generally it's more an absolute, a relative things. We like to set up a quadrant like this in order to clearly define our different population. So here, if I have my revenue as a vertical axis and my growth in my horizontal axis, I want that each of my products go in the top right corner in order to drive the overall revenue growth in my product portfolio. And you can see, so here the slow movers, they don't drive the growth because they have low revenue and low growth. Here is more my emerging products, low revenue but high potential because they have high growth. So over time they will go like this, up into this zone. This one, the way to go is more here, because over the time you will have less growth, and we have like the old aging products that generate a lot of revenue, but they grow slowly. So very useful, especially for portfolio analysis, customer portfolio, product portfolio. When you have to make decision on a portfolio, it's perfect to have a bubble chart to classify your different products here. The time
we are a bit over the time, but
okay,
it's very interesting.
I finished.
We have like the four. Okay, let's go over
that. Chart, it's quite easy. It's just to have the distribution again, avoid the rainbow. We just need 3 or 4 categories. Do not forget that our brain, our eyes are not comfortable with angles to evaluate the different areas. So be careful with the circular chart. Sometimes it's better to just use a leaderboard. But the circular chart has the advantage that we have seen it a lot during our life. We see a pie chart everywhere in newspaper, on TV. So we are used to, we are educated to it, but it's not that great in terms of visual cues.
But without the unit, you couldn't say which area are the widest between the green and the yellow one, for example. So you need the unit.
Yeah, exactly. Waterfall. This one, it's the total opposite because we are not used to. use it. It's more the finance guys that love this chart to compare a before and an after statement. So generally, so here, for instance, I want to compare the result of the previous year. No, it's not in this board, but yeah, I just switch the boss, but let's say it's previous year here and current year here. I want to know I ended into my current year result by splitting into different categories my evolution. So you have to read it like this. So you go on your previous year value, you go on the right. Here you go up with the increase in Europe. So the results are better this year in Europe. So you have the increase, you go on the next category, increase, you go on the next category, you decrease. This is the way to look at it. Okay? And at the end, you land into your current year value. Okay? And it's especially useful when your variation is kind of flat, because you could say, okay, I have the same result as the previous year, so I don't care. I have nothing to, I have no insight to have. But the waterfall brings that. It shows you the individual switch between your categories. And among the categories, you can have hidden variations. So for instance, on the Asia, which are dropping, not every country in Asia are dropping. We can see that China is actually increasing the result, but it's outperformed by the decrease within India. So powerful visualization, but not people are not so used. So use it with parsimony, because it's difficult for a user to understand it, or use the narrative to explain it. But yeah, map charts. This one is often misused as well, because the map chart only serve to identify geographical patterns and clusters. Here, for instance, I couldn't see on the leaderboard that there is a whole region where there is the same pattern. So here I have the Britain region. Each of my departments have the same kind of pattern on my indicator. Here I have something with a void zone with a low level on my indicators. Here around Paris, you see, you can identify some regional trends by seeing your geographical data like this. But we are not saying that when you have geographical data, you should always do a map chart. Again, ask yourself, what is the question? And if the question is, I want to see my top 5 departments, the ranking of, and which difference between them, I can't see that with a map chart. Just do a leaderboard. Just do a leaderboard. So yeah, the map chart is only here to identify some patterns within the at a regional level, country level, etc.
Oui, but geographic data doesn't mean map chart.
Yeah, exactly. This is sometimes the issue we used to do because it sounds natural, but it is not for the user. Always ask yourself, what is the question? And the last one, the heat map. It's the same principle as the map chart. The goal is to identify patterns. You have 3 main dimensions to identify pattern within a heat map. You can identify pattern within a column. So for instance, here I compare the growth on some countries of some products. Okay, And here I can easily say that, okay, in Australia, there is a pattern. It's all in red. So there is something in Australia. I can do the same on each product, on each line. So I can see that, okay, the cameras, it's mainly green, except on a few countries. And if your heat map is well built, so here we just gather the countries by region. So here America, Europe. So the order of your column and your lines matters, because you can then bring some insight about some cluster like this one. So here I can clearly say, okay, on the smartphone and smartwatch, there is something. It's all red in America, it's all green in Europe. And you couldn't see this with another chart. So it brings the column, the rows, but also if you build it correctly, it can bring the insight on some clusters. And voila. I will just go back to the slide just to sum up.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just introduce you about the data visualization and how it is important to make this translation between what we see and what we think smoother and easier. And so you should spend a lot of time and effort on design, because it's the key component of the data visualization success. We presented our method to design properly an application. I hope you will use our task map for your next project to build your next dashboard and application. And I hope you find some key insights to choose between a chart or another.
Awesome. Thank you. If you have, we have a bit off with the time, but if you have any question in the chat, we'll take 5 minutes to answer it. You will get the replay right after we end this session. You have, I think, all the sources we mentioned in the slide. So if you want to go deeper on specific topics, you have everything. You can contact the team if you want. You can contact us if you want more details about something specific. Okay, we have questions. Amazing presentation. Thank you. Great. Is it planned to have a demo application for 3 as we have the case for V2?
Yes. Actually, the application I just show you is the equivalent of the new demo we had within the V2, which refers each chart with each configuration. And basically, we are currently developing a tool that will allow us to bring this application I just show you within any customer instances on vSuite. So soon you will have this kind of application, I hope.
In the portal?
Yes,
okay.
Directly within your instance. This is the goal.
Awesome. The question was great. Awesome. So we have said everything, I think. So thank you everyone for attending. And you will get the replay. This was the second episode. We have the third one coming in November. So stay tuned for the date. You will get an email or everything is on the website. You will receive the communication about it and about the topic. And I think that's it. Thank you. See you for the next one.
See you. Bye-bye.